We'll
Malvika.
just hi, Mr. Ritul. How are you today?
Good.
So I can see a lot of participants joining in, and since it's just sharp 3 right now, we'll just allow it 1 or 2 minutes for the rest of them to catch on as well. But such an interesting topic. I saw people were waiting to join in. So in the meanwhile, I'd encourage all our SMEs to really network with each other using the chat box. You can introduce yourself, your business, make some valuable connections, even though we can't meet offline. Let's do this digitally. So, just introducing myself, I'm Malvika Jaggi and I'm representing Global Linker today. Global Linker is, like you know, an SME business networking platform with over 4 lakh plus SMEs across the world. And as most of you are aware, it's a free solution to join. And however, it is only by invitation offered by corporations, trade bodies, and government organizations as well. So the idea is really to make SMEs discoverable and transaction ready in this digital era. I can see some chats popping up where Azim, we deal in basmati rice, uh, Nitin, who makes websites and apps. Great. Hi, everybody. So, so while we wait for a couple of more people to join, and let me tell you a little about the Global Linker Growth Talks initiative. So, growth never really takes place by mere chance, right? It is honestly the result of various forces working together. And our Growth Talk series is bringing these forces of industry specialists, of domain experts to share practical knowledge with our growing community. Let me now introduce Mr. Ritul Patwa to you. Um, he is going to share valuable insights on the Union Budget 2022 and its importance for SMEs. Mr. Ritul Patwa, a CA, has over 20 years of experience in this field, and he is a seasoned expert in various domains like taxation, compliance, business, and financial advisory. His expertise honestly lies in direct and indirect taxes and is consulting for various clients across the globe. He is currently associated with various trade bodies and associations and has helped successful amendments in tax laws. So, for all the SMEs who've joined us today, I'd like to remind you that this session has been curated and tailor made exclusively for you. The Indian MSME sector today contributes about 29% towards GDP through its national and international trade. And while there is a lot of discussion on the budget, from digital currency to e-passports, in this webinar, it will be about you, your SME business, and how you can make the best of the budget. So, Ritulji, we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Malika. Thanks for taking me on board.
So, if you're okay, sir, we'll do this session in a Q&A format. We have
Sure.
received a lot of questions prior as well, but we'll take that on towards the end. But couple of them which I've actually jotted down such that we can hear your take on it.
Sure. You can start with your questions.
Sure. So, Mr. Ritul, we have over 4 lakh plus SMEs on Global Linker, and around 2 lakh of them are from India. So it'll be nice if you can share your thoughts on the top 3 positive aspects for our SMEs in this budget.
Budget positives for MSMEs, right? So first, the government is revamping the Credit Guarantee Trust for Micro and Small Enterprises (CGTMSE) scheme with the required infusion of funds. The move will facilitate additional credit of Rs 2 lakhs for micro and small enterprises and expand employment opportunities. This scheme entails collateral fee funding up to rupees 2 crore for micro and small enterprises without collateral. So this is part one, because what happens is in the prior scheme, it was always that you need to have collateral or you should have a loan history. In this scheme, the government is providing first-hand loans, and that to collateral fee. Second, the government has launched Raising and Accelerating MSME Performance, that is RAMP program, with an outlay of 6,000 crores over the next 5 years. This will help the MSME sectors become more resilient, competitive, and efficient. Importantly, RAMP is a part of the MSME competitiveness, a post-COVID resilience and recovery program by the government. Third, linking of government portals. In order to make seamless access to government data on registration of MSMEs, organized workers, availability of skilled workers, etc., government is interlinking 4 portals, visually, Udyam, eShram, NCS, and ASI. So these are primarily the first 3 things that I could think about MSMEs. And I think these are the key punch points which I would like to place before the forum.
Sure, of course. So, Mr. Ritul, you mentioned about 4 different portals, right? So can you elaborate a little about that and explain to our viewers how interlinking of these government portals will really benefit MSMEs?
Malika, what happens is, okay, I'll take it in 2 parts. So first I'll elaborate the objective of each portal, and then I'll discuss the benefits of interlinking these portals. So the first portal is Udyam, which is for MSME registration. The second portal is eShram. It is a national database for unorganized workers. Third is NCS, that is National Career Service. It provides employment service like job search, job matching, career counseling, etc. And the fourth is ASI, that is Atmanirbhar Skilled Employer-Employee Mapping. It does mapping of supply of skilled workforce with the market demand. So these are the 4 basic initiatives the government has started previously, and now it is interlinking. So by interlinking, it will widen their scope and will have live organic database providing G2C, B2C, B2B services, and these services will relate to credit facilitation, skilling, and recruitment with an aim to further formalize the economy and enhance entrepreneurial opportunities for all. So by interlinking, all these activities will come together and will benefit all the MSMEs.
Great. Thank you for elaborating on the portals as well. So, Ritulji, we had a couple of Global Linker SMEs who were asking if there is any relief on taxation front for them. So what would be your take on that?
Oh, well, this is one of the greatest takeaway from this budget. Most of the people, they won't see the tax part of it, but I'll take the best part of it out. So firstly, the government has done reverse engineering in the custom duty for the benefit of MSMEs. I'll explain it. Custom exemptions have been removed and duty structures have been raised for goods that can be manufactured in India. For example, custom duty on umbrella has been raised to 20% and the exemption to parts of umbrella has been withdrawn. Similarly, for large number of daily use electronic items like earphone, components of mobile chargers, camera lens for mobile phones, etc., they have been increased. So as a first part, the government has worked as a deterrent, so to promote the local industry. Then for items like steel scrap that provides raw material for the MSMEs, the custom duty exemptions have been continued. So the input would always continue to be cheap and the output, you don't have to compete with the imported products. Now, third, further in the larger public interest, anti-dumping duty and countervailing duty on certain items have been removed, like bars of steel alloy, stainless steel, etc. So the government has worked in they have strategically placed themselves and tried to build the Make in India. So whatever is important for Make in India, they are making it cheap, and whatever is competing with Make in India, what we are able to produce in India, they are making it expensive for the outside world, so that our companies become MSME becomes more competitive. Then on the direct tax front, government has extended the last date for commencement of production up to 31st March 2024 for new domestic manufacturing units for claiming a lower rate of tax of 15% under Section 15 BAB of Income Tax Act. So similarly, the date of registration for an eligible startup for 3 years tax exemption out of first 10 years has also been extended by 1 year, and now it is 31st March 2023. So government has done certain strategic changes, though they may not be specific specific and they may not be pinpointed, but these changes are really going to make a long-term impact on the business, the way we do business.
Right, definitely. So that's really good to know. And well, moving on, let me tell you, Global Linker has SMEs from across 37 industries and maybe about 150 plus sub-industries. And it has been a tough time during the pandemic for various industries, right? But tourism and hospitality have taken a big hit and have been adversely impacted. So what have they got under the budget this time?
Malvika, fortunately, as we are looking forward to an endemic to COVID-19, hospitality is one of the fastest recovering sector. Though the pricing is still subdued, but we are seeing quick recovery in occupancy numbers, and the same will improve once the international tourism resumes. So government has created, as you are aware that during the COVID-19 times, the government has created an emergency credit line guarantee scheme, ECLGS, for the immediate relief of the industry during COVID-19. So what happened was that in case if any company or a individual was having a credit line, 20% collateral free credit was given to them. In this budget, this scheme has been extended till 31st March 2023 with an additional funding support of 50,000 crore rupees to the hospitality and related industry. This will provide them a collateral fee additional funding of 20% to revamp their business and reach to pre-COVID levels. So I think this is funding support that the government has given, and this will give the breathing space for them to come back to the when the industry comes to normal. Till that time, they will have enough time to revamp their business.
Sure. So, Ritulji, let's move on to now the sunrise sectors, as they say. So, how do you think this will play a crucial role for MSMEs?
There are several new opportunities that are coming up for the MSMEs. But in my view, the key sunrise sectors that will create a galaxy of new stars being born from the MSMEs are, say, agri-tech startups, artificial intelligence, drones, semiconductors, space economy, genomics and pharmaceuticals, EV battery swapping, e-waste and end-of-life vehicles, and infrastructure contracting in solar power plants. So these are the key sectors I'm talking about. When you move around these sectors, so each sector which will have ancillaries. And as you are aware that ho sakta hai ki in the main segment, say in semiconductors, primarily you find big players to come in. But when you see the ancillary industry, it will give a lot of opportunity for the MSMEs and for other sectors, especially in the artificial intelligence or agri-tech startups or EV battery swapping or e-waste and end-of-life vehicles. I expect it's going to be very specific to MSMEs and they will have immense opportunities. Going forward, you may see that a lot of new stars and a lot of new unicorns are being born out of these new sunrise sectors.
Wonderful, wonderful. We really look forward to that. So maybe if you can help us with an example such that our viewers will understand better about these sectors.
Okay, so let me discuss this with this an opportunity in the agri-tech business. So the first name which I took was agri-tech because I think that this is one of the biggest opportunities which is up in front of all of us. So we all are aware that currently property market is passing through a slump period, especially for rural areas and distant land parcels. So where the land is very cheap as of this date. So does that mean that an entrepreneur who is interested in organic farming, agri-tech and greenhouse farming with use of technology can explore the government scheme and subsidies in this sector and start his own business? It's a completely win-win situation where you acquire real estate in a slump market, you get the government subsidy and supports, your real estate is generating a regular return for you, and you are serving the society with healthy and organic food. So if somebody calls it a jackpot opportunity, I would not differ with them. I think it's a wonderful time. You just need to look around you. So I have discussed, say, agri-tech business. We can discuss each and every opportunity and you'll find that each opportunity is like an immense jackpot. You just need to look in the right format. You need to identify where the government is giving you the benefit. You need to be at the right place at the right time. So be at the right place at the right time. That's it.
Seize the opportunity, right? Absolutely. So before we move on to the next question, I can see some of our members actually, they're saying if you can go a little slowly such that they can register and process the information. So, moving to the next question. So, according to you, has there been any structural changes that small and medium enterprises might benefit from in the union budget?
The government has proposed certain transformational changes, especially in its procurement procedures. These are going to help SMEs in a big way in the long run. We may not see the immediate impact. You may not see that some additional cash is being added to the SMEs, but you will see how this is going to impact in the long run. So one of the things that has happened is online e-billing system. So what is online e-billing system? The government will prepare a portal for all its procurement and all its public sector undertakings, and every bill, every MSME which is going to bill the government, that will be done on that online e-billing system. This will enhance transparency and reduce delay in payment. So if you have put up your bill and everything is complete, your bill is going to be processed within a specified time. So this will give a management of working capital control for the MSMEs. Then the government has provided for surety bonds as a substitute of bank guarantee in government procurements. So these surety bonds will be issued by the insurance companies, and IRDA has already issued a format for that. So it will reduce interest cost for suppliers and work contractors who are working with the government and who are providing providing government procurements. Then there is a wonderful thing which is called Amrit Kal. The government has named it as Amrit Kal. The provision has been made for a mandatory payment of 75% of our running bills within 10 days of submission of the bill. And further, the government is saying that in case of any dispute in payment, it should be encouraged to be resolved by conciliation and not by litigation. So by all these measures taken together, we will find that government is primarily moving in a zone where they want it to be more compliance driven, and they want maximum governance with minimum government. So they don't want a lot of babus to be intervening in your payment process. They want your payment to be processed fast. They want security, but to reduce the burden of interest on you. So a lot of transformational things have been proposed in this budget. And I think these structural changes are going to make a long way down the line for the MSMEs.
Sure, definitely. So, I see some questions coming up from the members. I'd like them to do add them in the Q&A or the chat box, and we'll take it up in the end. But moving next, I think maybe if we can hear your take on what is your rating of the budget this time on a scale of 1 to 10. So 10 being the highest, where would you rate it?
So Malvika, few jotters from the budget. First, the government has taken a very bold step by not making it a populist budget, despite of the upcoming elections in the key states. Second, the government has maintained a stable and predictable tax regime. So if you are a taxpayer, you know this year I have to pay this tax, and for the next 5 years, this is the same tax regime I'm going to work in. So whatever planning you have to do accordingly, and you know that there are not going to be many surprises in the budget. So this is a very good take from the government. Third, government has kept its focus on infrastructure development and long-term capital expenditure with a 10-year futuristic view. So what has happened is directly government is not giving any subsidies or anything like that in this budget. But what they have done is they have done a lot of capital expenditure and infrastructure. This capital expenditure, it will not only bring a lot of movement in the economy, it will also provide a long-term benefit to the economy. And I'm sure that it's a very long-term vision driven budget, because earlier we used to hear that China is working on, say, 25 years economic plan. We have never heard about that in India. Always what used to happen, if a budget was about to come, it was only a 1-year budget. For next year, they will decide again. This time, what I could see is that the government is looking forward for next 10 years, 15 years, and they are not just looking at 1-year budget. And last but which is the most important point is the government is creating opportunity for business avenues and developing new sectors like agri-tech, green energy, battery swapping, digital currency, etc. This will create hundreds of new unicorns in the Indian economy. So as I've discussed earlier, let's see, India was earlier a developing economy, and from last 40 years, we all have been hearing that India is a developing economy. But today we are on the conflux when probably we will be shifting from developing to develop. I'll give it by an example that recently I have seen a list of unicorns by the country. So India stands third. First is US, second is China, and third is India with 90 unicorns. A unicorn is a company which has a valuation of 1 billion and above. So India has already reached to the top three positions. Now it's just a matter of time that we are converting from a developing economy to a developing economy. Said all this, I would give this budget a rating of say 8 out of 10, expecting a 10 on 10 budget next year, because I think that is going to be the last budget for this government before the elections. So I think it's a reasonably good budget, and I think government has done a lot on a long-term basis.
Sure, wonderful. Okay, so if you were the finance minister, what would you have done more for the SMEs of today?
Well, I am actually a non-political person, but being a finance guy, in my view, the government job is to create an ecosystem that provides opportunity to scale up the business of SMEs. So conventional business is getting difficult due to massive competition, large conglomerates entering these sectors. But simultaneously, new generation opportunities are also developing. I believe we need to foster and support the businesses like a sapling in the beginning till it becomes a tree and gives its fruit to the society at large. So in the first place, I would have reserved certain sunrise sectors for the SMEs to allow them a head start before the larger players can enter those sectors. Second, I would have reduced the tax rate for the SME as against the large conglomerates. So this would give them an additional cushion. What happens is the conglomerates have benefits of scale. So due to their scale, they are already cheaper than SMEs. But giving a little headroom by way of a taxation difference, I think we can make MSMEs more competitive with the conglomerates. Third thing, one thing that the government has really done well is providing collateral-free credit line to SMEs during COVID-19 pandemic. I would have extended these schemes with an annual evaluation based. I would have put up an annual evaluation for the MSMEs who have been benefited by these schemes, and based on their scalability and growth in the business, this scheme would have been further enhanced for them, and they would have been given more opportunities and more benefits for the scheme. So whatever schemes that we are providing, it has to be constantly reviewed. It has to be constantly evaluated, and based on our evaluation, I think the government should further enhance or reduce the capacity of the SMEs. What is happening is, I'll just explain what has happened over the period of time. So what has happened is, in last 50, 60 years, whenever there was some government scheme, it was being distributed like, in Hindi we बोलते हैं रेवड़ियां बांट रहे थे. We were not checking who is getting the benefit. Now the time has come, because a lot of accountability has been created and a lot of tech has given us a lot of headroom to evaluate the data. So when the time has come, we have got the complete data. We could make it based on the performance. If you're performing, you'll be benefited. If you're not performing, your benefits will be taken back. So this sort of some arrangement, I think government should do. I think these are my takes on what the government can plan in future.
Absolutely. So just summarizing it, Ritulji, if you can again maybe tell our viewers about the 3 most positive aspects that SMEs can take away from the budget.
Malvika, I have already discussed the 3 positive takeaways. So the first one was the CGTMSE scheme, where the government is providing additional credit of around 2 lakh crore rupees to micro and small enterprises. I will explain it how it is different from the other scheme. So in this scheme, what happens is it is primarily for micro and small enterprises. It is not for the medium enterprises. So when it is for the micro and small enterprises, there are small companies which are starting, and plus one positive thing about it is that they don't look for what you have done in the past or what is your past loan track. So even if you are asking for a loan for the first time, this scheme is going to assist you, and they are going to provide you a collateral-free loan up to rupees 2 crores. And especially in the micro and small enterprise segment. Earlier, what used to happen is that the small enterprises which were recently started, or they didn't have the headroom and they were not able to get the benefits of the government scheme. This scheme is going to assist them. Second point which I have said is RAM program, which has an outlay of 6,000 crore rupees. I personally believe that 6,000 crore rupees is pretty less, because when you're talking about post-COVID resilience and recovery program, amount could have been increased. And probably, I think going forward, say next year, the government may realize this and they may like to increase this amount. But this will definitely become this is definitely important, because it is making MSMEs more resilient, competitive, and efficient. So by spending on that, I think this is going to be a second good take from the budget. Third, I think I've already discussed that interlinking of the government portals. Udyam, eShram, NCS, ASEAN. This is going to provide a better facilitation for the business. It is going to give a better framework for the MSMEs. It is going to help in credit facilitation, skill and recruitment, and further formalize the economy. So ultimate objective is that earlier and sooner that we formalize our economy into a more formal economy than from an informal economy, it is better for all of us, because this is going to give more space for people who are really interested to do good work, and who are interested to do business. Informal economy, we are unable to track, so government is unable to make policies accordingly. So I think by doing these things, the government has created a benchmark or an ecosystem that will provide MSME a lot of headroom, and a long-term perspective has been put into place.
Great. So, Ritulji, instead of me asking you more questions, let's just go to the questions that our members today are asking. If you're okay, let's get started with that. Mr. Rajiv Singh, he's asking you if you can throw some light on EV and battery swapping.
Okay. So what is happening is this is a wonderful question, because everybody here is talking about electronic vehicles. So as you're aware that most of the there are a lot of companies who have stopped making any innovation in the diesel and petrol vehicles. So we all are aware that going forward, EV is the only way forward. Diesel and petrol vehicle is just a matter of time, say 5 years, 10 years before they are being phased out. Now, once we are moving to EV vehicles, so there are two options. Either we create charging stations. So there are companies like there's a Tata company which is creating that infrastructure for charging. So one option is that we create those charging stations across India. Creating a charging station has two problems. First, it requires a lot of space. So if I put in 10 cars for charging, and even it takes 30 minutes for a car to get charged, I think how many cars I can do in a day's time. So there is a time and space restriction. What government has proposed is that they will provide, like there is a cylinder. Well, you see a gas agency, you go to gas agency, you give your existing cylinder and you take a new cylinder from them. So for that, what government is proposing is that there should be uniformly interchangeable batteries. So once you have uniformly interchangeable batteries, you will just move into a charging station. He will take out your existing battery and he swap a new battery inside, and you can just run over for next 500 kilometers till you go to another station and swap the battery again. So this is a wonderful thought process which is coming up. Although this will require a lot of, trust me, it is not easy. So every EV company is working on a different platform. Every EV company, they are working on a different battery mechanism. They have different forms of battery. So the government will require a lot of linkages between these companies so that a uniformity can be brought into it. Plus, taking out and replacing the batteries. That is another point which needs to be taken care of. But once the direction is set, I'm saying that you need to think before things come up. So once the direction is set, this is going to be the future, and probably this is going to be one of the great businesses and beneficial businesses for the MSMEs, because I'm sure that MSME will have a lot of opportunity into it.
Absolutely. So further on question in the same area from a lady called Debolina. She's asking you, if we want to create charging stations near restaurants or parks, do you think that's flexible and feasible?
I can't hear you. Can you please repeat?
So adding on to the previous question, the lady Debolina, she's asking if we want to create charging stations near restaurants or parks? Do you think it's feasible as well as flexible?
Once we are talking about charging stations, a lot of work has to be done at the government's end. See, the problem in the cities is there is a limitation of space. So if you want a space of, say, for charging station in the center of the city, so either it is too expensive and too not financially feasible for the owner to place that merely as a charging station. So you have to make it financially viable, and along with that, a useful proposition. In the current scenario, I find this as a very difficult scenario because the land is very expensive. The station capacity building is also expensive. And what we intend to achieve, the customer which is coming to your station, he's not expecting to pay such a high price. So in this place, I think the government will have to put in a lot of effort. They will have to come in and intervene in this case, and they will have to create infrastructure. And then MSME will be called, yes, we have got the space. Now you want to establish the space, so we are going to rent out the space to you for a certain period of time, or you can utilize our infrastructure for building these spaces. So something of this form, it will be a PPP collaboration, and by PPP partnership only this thing could be successfully done. We have started the discussion probably in the last 1 or 2 years, but in next 2 or 3 years we will have a lot of public policy being announced on this matter, and practical implementation of this policy will take around 2 to 3 years before it becomes a reality for all of us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, moving to the next question from Kriti. Actually, at Global Linker, we are partnered with Federation of Indian Export Organizations, and therefore we have a lot of exporters on board as well. So, Kriti asks if there's anything for the export sector in the budget.
Definitely government has a focus on the export, and they are looking forward to create an infrastructure to give export a boost. So what they have done in this budget is that export linked imports, they have reduced they have tried to reduce the cost of your imports which are related or linked to the export. This is one thing which directly they have given. But what I have seen in this budget is the primary focus of the government is merely make in India. So once we are able to make in India on larger size and scales, I think our products are definitely going to be cheaper, and our products are going to be more competitive in the international market. So that is the primary focus of the government. As I have already said in my previous discussion, that this budget is not a 1-year budget. So if you rate this budget on a 1-year budget, so probably you will not go above 5. But when you see this budget over the period of say next 10 years, 15 years, or over a period of time, so I'm sure that you're going to find a lot of positives going forward from this budget, because it's more of a thought process which has been brought into this budget instead of just merely giving certain numbers.
So a long-term perspective is
it's a long-term perspective,
right? So there's a question from Sugrodeep Mondal. I think we've already answered this just now, but I'm just reading it out. I'm into wooden toy merchant exports, and I'm a new entrepreneur. Is there anything sector specific in the export category? So we just took this on.
Yes.
We'll move on to the next one. Mr. Raghava asks, what are the startup benefits, if any?
See, Raghav, I think startup has been one of the biggest focus for Modi government specifically, because ever since he started, and they have been talking about Startup India and a lot of Make in India, and this has been a focus area for the Modi government from last, say, probably I'll say 8 years, 9 years. So now a complete infrastructure has been already been created. First, I come to the tax part of it. So if you have an eligible startup which is registered with the government, so you can take exemption from payment of tax for 3 years out of first 10 years of your working. So this is one of the biggest lucrative things that has been given to you. So if you are running a startup, you can take a benefit of 3 out of 10 years tax-free income. So this is part one. Besides this, the government has also created an ecosystem. So that ecosystem will provide you all the inputs and incentives and all these benefits, and you can always go there and find what is more suitable for you. You can explore. So previously we were not aware that what benefits I can take. So now every government, every state, every district, there is a startup department. There is a complete startup. There's a complete ecosystem which has been built for the startups, where you can go and explore what are the opportunities available for you. Besides this, if you want funding, so there are two types of funding which are coming. One is the capex funding, the other is the external funding, which is a loan funding. So government is also providing capex funding up to 20 lakh rupees to startups. You just need to go through those government schemes, and you'll find that there are a lot of things which has been done. I'm sure Modi government is already called a very vocal government, but I think still we need to reach out to the people to understand what are the things available. There are a lot of things which are available in the policy matters. We just need to explore them. A lot of things up for the startups.
Right. I think you touched upon two other questions that were coming up. One on how do the MSMEs finance themselves now, and how do we get MSME loans as well? So is there any criteria?
Okay, MSME loans पे एक बार मैं वापस आता हूँ. So this is a very important question, and when Malika asked me the 3 best takeaways from this budget, so the first thing which I have talked about, you need to contact your bankers and tell them that we don't have collateral, we are an MSME, we need to have loan. So the government is providing loans. There is, besides loan, subsidy. I'm not talking about subsidy. Already the banking, the rate of loan, the rate of interest charged by the bank are very low in India. So I'm talking about first getting the funds, because if you have the funds, you can scale and you can always pay the interest. So you can always contact your banker, then you can go to SIDBI. There are a lot of government agencies which are funding the startups. And especially in case of new startups, there are provisions of interest-free funding, subsidized funding, and a lot of new things are coming. So you just need to contact your banker, and there are government schemes which are helping you with this.
So I see a couple of members actually requesting if you can answer a few questions in Hindi. So maybe we'll take the next one in Hindi, if that's okay.
Sure. So
Mr. Prashant Maurya is asking if you can throw some light on the compliance area in the field of taxation and regulatory bodies, if there's any in this budget.
प्रशांत जी, देखिए हुआ क्या है कि आपने जैसे बजट स्पीच में सुना होगा कि 1500 लॉज ऐसे हैं जिसको मोदी सरकार ने रिपील किया है. So the government has a stated agenda of maximum governance and minimum government. So they don't want to be everywhere, and they want to be more reliant. There have been certain provisions which have been brought in to avoid litigation in this budget also. मैंने उसको initially में put up इसलिए नहीं किया था, because देखिए क्या होता है कि ये बहुत they are more of a compliance perspective and litigation perspective पे है. तो सरकार ने एक प्रावधान जो दिया है वो ये दिया है कि आपने मान लो इस साल की आप इनकम रिटर्न भरना भूल गए, या आपने अपनी रिटर्न के अंदर अपनी इनकम को भरना भूल दिए, आप छूट गई आपसे, तो उसको आपको अगले 2 साल तक रेक्टिफाई करके और उसके ऊपर टैक्स भरने का आपको प्रावधान दिया है, जिसमें आपके ऊपर कोई पीनल एक्शन नहीं होगा. एडिशनल टैक्स आपको 25% विद इन 1 ईयर और 50% विद इन 1 ईयर टू 2 ईयर के अंदर पे करना पड़ेगा. बट दैट इज अ वे ऑफ अवॉइडिंग लिटिगेशन. एक तो ये प्रावधान दिया है. इसके अलावा सरकार ने क्या कहा है कि अगर आपके कोई एग्जिस्टिंग लिटिगेशन चल रहे हैं जिसके आपके फेवर में कोई ऑर्डर आ चुका है, तो एक कोलेजियम क्रिएट किया जाएगा और उसी टॉपिक के ऊपर फर्दर आपके अदर ईयर्स की कोई डिमांड क्रिएट नहीं की जाएगी जब तक कि उसका फर्दर आपके अगेंस्ट में ऑर्डर नहीं आ जाता. तो ये एक सेकंड प्रोविजन है जो लिटिगेशन को कम करने के लिए, क्योंकि अगर एक लिटिगेशन होता है तो आपको अपील करने के लिए, सिर्फ अपील करने के लिए भी प्री डिपॉजिट देना पड़ता है, जो आपकी वर्किंग कैपिटल को इंपैक्ट करता है. और हमने बहुत बार देखा है कि टैक्स ऑफिसर कई बार ओवर एंथुसियाज्म के अंदर बहुत सारी ऐसी टैक्स डिमांड क्रिएट कर देते हैं जो फीजिबल नहीं होती, पर बहुत बड़ी बड़ी टैक्स डिमांड हो जाती है. तो असेसी के लिए ये बहुत बड़ा एक तकलीफ का काम होता है. तो एक ये प्रावधान भी सरकार ने इस बजट के अंदर दिया है जिससे लिटिगेशन को कम किया जा सकता है. कॉम्पिटिटिवनेस को बढ़ाया जा सकता है, सरकार की एफिशिएंसी बढ़ेगी। जैसे अगर मान लो 100 की जगह अगर 10 ही केस होने तो इवन गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसर्स की भी एफिशिएंसी बढ़ेगी, उनकी अकाउंटेबिलिटी बढ़ेगी। तो उसको देखते हुए ये प्रावधान भी सरकार लेके आई है। कंप्लायंस में डेफिनेटली वी आर इन अ ट्रांजिशन फेज। मैं ये तो नहीं बोलूंगा कि कंप्लायंस बहुत सिंपल हो चुका है, अभी भी हमें अलग अलग तरीके की रिटर्न भरनी पड़ती है, हमें अलग अलग तरीके का डेटा भरना पड़ता है। स्पेशली आप लोग जब भी अपनी रिटर्न भरें, दिस इज अ कॉशन स्टेटमेंट व्हिच आई एम गिविंग टू ऑल द MSMEs आउट देयर, कि अगर कोई भी व्यक्ति अपनी इनकम टैक्स की रिटर्न भर रहा है तो प्लीज अपना AIS स्टेटमेंट डाउनलोड करके जरूर चेक करिए, कहीं आप कोई इनकम चूक तो नहीं गए हैं। सरकार के पास बहुत ज्यादा डेटा अवेलेबल है। आई हैव बीन पार्ट, इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट के लिए हमने एक प्रोजेक्ट किया था जिसके अंदर हम लोग ने उनके लिए डेटाबेस मैनेजमेंट सॉफ्टवेयर एक डेवलप करके दिया था। हमारी CA फर्म, वी आर प्रोबब्ली द फर्स्ट CA फर्म हु हैज डेवलप्ड अ डेटाबेस मैनेजमेंट सॉफ्टवेयर फॉर द इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट। सो you can't imagine the sort of data that the government is having, and especially when you'll go and check your AIS statement, you'll be stunned to see कि इतनी सारी इंफॉर्मेशन गवर्नमेंट को पता है। मैं एक छोटे से एग्जांपल से आपको बताता हूँ उस चीज को। क्या होता है कि जैसे म्यूचुअल फंड होता है, आपने 1 लाख रुपए का म्यूचुअल फंड ले रखा है, अब ड्यूरिंग द ईयर आपने उसमें से 50,000 स्विच करके एक स्कीम से हटा के दूसरी स्कीम में लेके चले गए, तो आपको खुद को नहीं पता, आपके लिए तो 1 लाख का म्यूचुअल फंड 1 लाख का ही, आपने आपके बैंक अकाउंट में कुछ नहीं आया, पर सरकार को पता है कि आपका कैपिटल गेन की लायबिलिटी वहां पे क्रिएट हो गई है और आपके AIS स्टेटमेंट के अंदर वो चीज इंफॉर्मेशन में आ जाएगी। तो जब आप अपने AIS स्टेटमेंट को बहुत क्लोजली मॉनिटर करेंगे तो आपको ये पता पड़ जाएगा कि सरकार को क्या पता है। और ट्रस्ट मी, सरकार को बहुत कुछ पता है। दे हैव क्रिएटेड एन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वेयर दे हैव गॉट लॉट ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन अबाउट यू, सो बी वेरी पर्टिकुलर, यू शुड नो एंड you should be very open in providing all the information, and आपको बहुत deliberately सारी चीजों को अपनी प्रॉपर्टी करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि अगर आप अभी नहीं करेंगे तो आप ये मान के चलिए आपके ऊपर बहुत मोटी लायबिलिटी आएगी, क्योंकि इंटरेस्ट और पीनल प्रोविजन सरकार ने बहुत हार्श कर दिए हैं। अब इंटरेस्ट और पीनल प्रोविजन उतने सिंपल है नहीं जो आज से 5 साल पहले होते थे। लोग क्या बोलते थे 5 साल पहले, यार सर्च आएगी तो 30% और थोड़ी मोटी पेनल्टी या 50% ही लेके जाएगी, वैसे ही 30% तो देना ही है, तो 50-60% दे देंगे, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता। अब वो नहीं है। अगर अब सर्च आएगी और आपके यहाँ कोई अनडिस्क्लोज्ड इनकम मिलती है तो मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द पैसा गवर्नमेंट इज गोइंग टू टेक अवे फ्रॉम यू, इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू स्टे विद यू। सो व्हाट आई वुड सजेस्ट इज दैट बी वेरी कंप्लायंट, make sure that you make complete disclosures in your income tax return, and always take help of professionals, because professional will always help you to be more compliant. Non-compliance will result in lot of after effects and बहुत सारी back end liabilities आपके ऊपर आ सकती है, जिसको मेरे ख्याल से आपको अवॉइड करना चाहिए, especially for startup or MSME. They can't afford to go into litigation.
Absolutely. Thank you for that valuable piece of advice. So moving to the next question, Debolina ji again is asking, what are the regulations for drone delivery and does it vary in various state policies?
देखिए, ड्रोन डिलीवरी हिंदी में बोलूं या इंग्लिश में करें इसको?
I think we'll do a combination.
Okay, ठीक है. So drone delivery is a very new concept. See, what happens is कि why government has started focusing on drone delivery? That is primarily because of the defense sector. What the government is requiring is that they need to develop our drone industry on a massive scale to compete with our neighbors like China or developed countries like US and other countries. So primarily what drone was on defense. But now that with Amazon coming up with the drone deliveries and other projects, they have already completed this on a sample basis के ऊपर वो लोग कर चुके हैं. I think this is going to be a next thing, but this is not going to be that easy, because क्या होता है कि जैसे आप सड़क पे चलते हैं, सड़क पे कुछ ट्रैफिक नॉर्म्स होते हैं, ऐसे ही जब आकाश में आपका ड्रोन उड़ रहा है तो वहां पे ज्यादा ट्रैफिक नॉर्म्स होने चाहिए, क्योंकि वहां पे बहुत सारे लोगों की जान भी खतरे में हो सकती है. आपका ड्रोन कितना पावरफुल होगा ये हमें नहीं पता. कहीं ऐसा तो नहीं होगा कि आप किसी एयरपोर्ट के नजदीक हैं और वहां पे आपने ड्रोन उड़ाया और आपका ड्रोन जाके किसी प्लेन से अड़ गया. सो देयर आर लॉट ऑफ पॉलिसी मैटर्स व्हिच हैज टू बी डिसाइडेड. प्लस ड्रोन की लाइसेंसिंग के प्रोविजन अभी हुए नहीं है, बिकॉज जैसे रोड पे चलाने के लिए आपको स्कूटर का लाइसेंस मिलता है, उसी तरीके से ड्रोन चलाने के भी लाइसेंसेस दिए जाएंगे और उसकी प्रॉपर ट्रेनिंग और मैकेनिज्म होगा. दिस इज ऑल वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस. आई एम श्योर बाय द टाइम वी विल डिस्कस द नेक्स्ट बजट वी विल हैव लॉट ऑफ इनपुट्स ऑन दैट, बिकॉज गवर्नमेंट इज इंटरेस्टेड इन ड्रोन इंडस्ट्री. As of date, drone industry is more of a startup for us, and we are experimenting. Once this experiment phase is over and we have complete guidelines, I think I'll be able to tell you more about that. But today we are just experimenting over things.
Right. So moving to the next question, Mr. Santosh is asking, अगर आप sovereign green bonds that is mentioned in the budget उसके बारे में बता सकते हैं?
देखिए क्या होता है ना कि सोवरेन ग्रीन बॉन्ड्स के बारे में बताने से पहले मैं आपको सोवरेन गोल्ड बॉन्ड्स के बारे में बताता हूँ. इट्स अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग. आई थिंक अगर आप लोगों में से किसी ने उसको नहीं लिया है या उसको नहीं समझा है तो प्लीज एक बार समझ लीजिए, फिर मैं सोवरेन ग्रीन बॉन्ड्स के ऊपर आता हूँ. तो सोवरेन गोल्ड बॉन्ड्स क्या होते हैं कि यदि आपको सोना रखने का शौक है, सोना खरीदने का शौक है, तो आप डायरेक्ट सोना मत खरीदिए, आपको गवर्नमेंट से सोवरेन गोल्ड बॉन्ड्स खरीद सकते हैं. अब सोवरेन गोल्ड बॉन्ड्स क्या होता है कि सोने की प्राइस के बराबर पैसा आप गवर्नमेंट को देते हो और उतने के बॉन्ड सरकार आपको देती है, जिसकी वैलिडिटी 8 इयर्स की होती है. 5.5 साल बाद दे विल गिव यू एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू विथड्रॉ द मनी. अदरवाइज इट इज एन 8 ईयर बॉन्ड ऑन विच द गवर्नमेंट इज गोइंग टू पे यू 2.5% रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट. नाउ it is giving you interest at the time of maturity. Whatever is the price of gold, the government is going to pay back that price of gold. This was a very easy thing, which is always in the gold ETS also. You get something, not interest, but at least you get price linked to gold. The better part of this, the best part of this gold sovereign gold bonds is that whatever amount you are going to get back, the entire amount profit is tax free. So you have got gold, you have got the benefit of escalation in the price of gold, you are getting interest on that gold, and whatever profit you are going to generate over the period of 8 years, that is tax free. Now an added icing on the cake. These bonds are listed on BSE and NSE. So if you want, say I have bought a bond today and I want liquidity tomorrow, you can go and sell your bond on the stock exchanges. So it is fully liquid. Although when you sell on the stock exchange, it is taxable, but still there is liquidity. It gives you a bandwidth. If you want money, you can sell your bonds at any point of time. So this is a wonderful concept that the government has got. अब इसके अंदर ये नई चीज आई है, ग्रीन बॉन्ड्स. अब ग्रीन बॉन्ड्स क्या होते हैं, ये भी इसी प्रकार का, इसका मैकेनिज्म अभी सरकार ने डिक्लेयर नहीं किया है, परंतु मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि ये ग्रीन बॉन्ड्स जो होंगे ये इसी किसी मैकेनिज्म के ऊपर आएंगे और सरकार इन बॉन्ड्स को इशू करेगी जिसके ऊपर सरकार की गारंटी होगी, विच इज द हाईएस्ट डिग्री ऑफ सेफ्टी. मतलब आरबीआई से भी ज्यादा सेफ होते हैं सोवरेन गारंटी. तो सोवरेन गारंटी के बॉन्ड्स होंगे, उस पर आपको इंटरेस्ट मिलेगा. प्लस यदि आपको वो कहीं पे सिक्योरिटी देनी है, श्योरिटी देनी है या टेंडर भरना है, तो उन बॉन्ड्स को आप एज अ सिक्योरिटी दे सकते हैं. तो अभी क्या होता था, जब आप सिक्योरिटी देने के लिए जाते थे बैंक से, बोलते थे साहब बैंक गारंटी दो, तो बैंक आपसे कुछ इंटरेस्ट चार्ज करता था. लेकिन अगर आपके पास कैपेसिटी है और आप बॉन्ड्स दे सकते हो, तो उस केस के अंदर आपको इंटरेस्ट मिलेगा, लगेगा नहीं. और प्लस मुझे उम्मीद है कि इसमें भी कैपिटल गेन के बेनिफिट्स भी शायद हमें मिले, बट इसकी स्कीम अभी आना पूरी बाकी है. तो वंस द एंटायर प्रोविजंस आर आउट, वी कैन डिस्कस ऑन दैट.
जी, तो आपने अभी सॉवरेन गोल्ड बॉन्ड्स के जो टैक्स फ्री फीचर्स है वो बताए, पर शिव जी पूछ रहे हैं, इफ gold bonds are purchased on the stock exchange, will they really be tax free if held till maturity?
Yes. The only provision to make them tax free is that they are being held till maturity. How you have purchased them, that has not been given under section 10. So section 10 states that if you pay, if you give your bonds back to the government at the time of maturity, they are tax free. Nowhere it is given that you have to buy the bonds from the government. It can be bought from the stock exchange also. So yes, you will get the capital gain exemption on the bonds.
Sure. So अब tax free तो बात कर ली, पर Mr. Prashant Maurya is asking, so why is the government really charging very heavy for cryptos?
Okay, so this is absolutely the buzz of the time. क्रिप्टो करेंसी के विषय में सरकार का एक बहुत ही क्लियर मैंडेट. See, what happens is कि cryptocurrency is competing with the government currency. किसी भी सरकार के हाथ में सबसे बड़ी पावर क्या होती है? आज किसी भी सरकार की सबसे बड़ी स्ट्रेंथ क्या होती है? इट कैन प्रिंट मनी, इट कैन इशू करेंसी। दिस इज द बिगेस्ट स्ट्रेंथ बाय विच द गवर्नमेंट्स आर बीइंग ऑपरेटेड। आपने देखा होगा गवर्नमेंट डेफिसिट में काम करती है। डेफिसिट में कैसे काम करती है? वो डिफरेंशियल का पैसा प्रिंट कर देती है। अब यदि उसके पैसे की जगह कोई दूसरा पैसा मार्केट में ऑपरेट होने लग जाएगा, जिसके ऊपर ना तो उसका कंट्रोल है ना किसी दूसरी कंट्री का कंट्रोल है, तो क्या वो उस करेंसी को एक्सेप्ट कर सकती है? नहीं कर सकती। इसके लिए गवर्नमेंट ने पिछले 3 बजट में, मैं एक बजट की बात नहीं करूंगा, पिछले 3 बजट में और इवन प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने अपने कई ग्लोबल स्टेटमेंट्स में कहा है कि द एंटायर वर्ल्ड हैज टू बी वेरी कॉशियस अबाउट द यूज ऑफ क्रिप्टो करेंसी। Now what happened is कि इंडिया के अंदर there are the highest number of people who are invested in cryptocurrency. So directly they won't go and say cryptocurrency is banned. But what they have done is they have made cryptocurrency equivalent to winning in lotteries. 30% tax slab. So even if you are selling cryptocurrency for say 1 lakh rupees and your tax slab is 10%, you will have to pay tax at the rate of 30%. This is part one. But there is another point which has come up here. So I think प्रशांत जी ने वो सवाल नहीं पूछा है कि क्रिप्टो करेंसी के लिए सबसे बड़ी मुश्किल क्या खड़ी की है। सबसे बड़ी मुश्किल खड़ी की है कि जो भी व्यक्ति क्रिप्टो करेंसी खरीद रहा है उसको टीडीएस काटना है। अरे भाई, ये टीडीएस क्या होता है? तो उसको जो प्राइस है जिसके ऊपर वो क्रिप्टो करेंसी खरीद रहा है उसके ऊपर उसको 1% टीडीएस डिडक्ट करना है। अब किस अमाउंट के ऊपर करना है? तो यदि कोई इंडिविजुअल और एचयूएफ है जिसकी बिजनेस इनकम नहीं है या बिजनेस इनकम ऑडिट के जोन में नहीं आती है, तो उसके 50,000 से ऊपर के अगर वो क्रिप्टो खरीदता है तो उस केस में उसको 1% टीडीएस काटना है। और इसके अलावा जितने भी लोग हैं उसका 20,000 से ऊपर अगर वो क्रिप्टो करेंसी खरीदते हैं तो इन दैट केस दे हैव टू डिडक्ट टीडीएस। नाउ यू इमेजिन इफ यू हैव टू बी कंप्लायंट विद दिस लॉ, हाउ डिफिकल्ट इट इज। It is not going to be easy. So I think government is trying to make transaction in cryptocurrency more difficult for the common man and more cumbersome. But NFT and other uses of crypto, I think government has gone a little harsh on that. मतलब I think cryptocurrency का लॉजिक हमें समझ में आता है कि भाई आप सरकार की करेंसी के साथ compete कर रहे हो, इसलिए सरकार को आपसे प्रॉब्लम है। लेकिन NFT is not competing with the government. So नॉन फंगल टोकन क्या होता है? जैसे आप लोगों को पता होगा कि ऋषभ पंत ने एक रिवर्स छक्का मारा था फास्ट बॉलर को, तो उसका एक NFT बन गया, उस शॉट का एक NFT बन गया, और जिसको भी उसकी ओनरशिप लेनी है, he can take ownership on that and he can buy and sell that. So it's more like a collectible. जैसे आप स्टैम्प कलेक्शन करते थे, आप कॉइन कलेक्शन करते थे, उसी तरीके से ये कलेक्टेबल है। सो अगर कलेक्टेबल चीजों के ऊपर हम 30% टैक्स लगा रहे हैं, आई थिंक, बट गवर्नमेंट हैज इट्स ओन लिमिटेशन, सो प्रोबेबली दे मस्ट हैव थॉट ऑफ कि कहीं कोई लूपहोल ना छूट जाए, तो उसने सबको इसके अंदर कवर कर लिया है। तो बट एनएफटी के केस में मुझे लगता है कि थोड़ा सा हार्श हो गया है
जी। तो मिस्टर पटनायक इज आस्किंग, what would you like to say about the future of forex traders in the Indian tax scenario? What about the regulations and tax liability?
फॉरेक्स ट्रेडर्स के ऊपर कोई टैक्स लायबिलिटी का चेंज हुआ नहीं है। दे हैव द सेम टैक्स मैकेनिज्म जिस पे आप हमेशा से काम करते आ रहे थे। आपका जो भी कमीशन बनता है वो टैक्सेबल है, उसके ऊपर आपको जीएसटी पे करना है, और नॉर्मल रेट में जो दूसरों के ऊपर टैक्स लायबिलिटी है, तो मालिक, आई हैव ऑलरेडी शेयर्ड द इनकम टैक्स रेडी रेकनर विद यू, एंड यू कैन ऑलवेज शेयर दैट रेडी रेकनर विद योर व्यूअर्स। So एक नॉर्मल टैक्स रेट, प्रोबेबली मालविका इज गोइंग टू शेयर दैट रेडी रेकनर विद यू, तो वो नॉर्मल टैक्स रेट ही आपके ऊपर एप्लीकेबल होता है।
जी जी। So moving to the next question, Mr. Murli, he says most of the MSME advantages at state level schemes or central level, I feel, are applicable only for micro and are very few advantages given for small and medium. Is that right?
नाम क्या बताया आपने? क्वेश्चन किसका है?
मुरली।
हाँ, मुरली, मैं तो कुछ और ही समझ रहा था। मतलब मैंने आपको जो अपना फर्स्ट एडवांटेज बजट का सबसे बड़ा प्लस पॉइंट एमएसएमई का बताया, तो मैंने आपको ये बताया कि जो सीजीटीएमएसई स्कीम है वो फर्स्ट टाइम स्मॉल तक पहुंच रही है। आज तक क्या होता था कि मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स दैट ऑल दीज बेनिफिट्स वर टेकन बाय मीडियम एंड स्मॉल, micro were not able to generate that benefit. Now the government is saying that we are going to give an additional credit line of 2 lakh crore rupees to micro and small. So I think it is more of focused on micro and small this time than on medium enterprises, and I think they will be more benefited by this budget. And that's the only reason why I've taken it as the first takeaway for MSME in this budget.
Absolutely. So further on, actually, in relation to this, Mr. Rajiv Singh is asking if you can elaborate a little more on CGTMSE.
CGT में क्या होता है कि सरकार आप लोन बैंक से ही लेते हैं, सिडबी से लेते हैं, जो आपका रेगुलर जिससे आपका ट्रांजैक्शन होता है आप उन्हीं से लोन लेते हैं। पर जब भी आप बैंक के पास लोन के लिए जाते हैं, सरकार बैंक आपसे सबसे पहले ये पूछती है कि आपके पास गारंटी है, कुछ कोलैटरल है जिसके ऊपर डिपेंड करके हम आपको लोन दे सकते हैं। उस केस में ज्यादातर एमएसएमईज को काफी दिक्कत आती है। तो यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट इज सेइंग दैट वी विल गिव अ क्रेडिट गारंटी on your behalf. There'll be a marginal additional charge of interest. So if say there's a 9% interest, your interest would be say 1% or 1.5% above that, 10.5%. But by charging that additional amount, you would not be required to give a collateral. So you are going to get a collateral-free loan, and you can start up your business. I think that marginal difference of interest that could be always better. So इस स्कीम के अंदर करीब 2 करोड़ रुपए तक का लोन स्मॉल एंड मीडियम एंटरप्राइजेस ले सकती हैं। उसके क्राइटेरियाज आपके बैंकर विल बी द बेस्ट गाय हु कैन टेल यू एंड हु कैन असिस्ट यू ऑन दैट। बट दिस इज अ वंडरफुल स्कीम एंड आई थिंक जो एंटरप्रेन्योर होता है, जो उसके पास सिर्फ एक आइडिया होता है, उसके पास सिर्फ एक विजन होता है, जरूरी नहीं है कि जिसके पास आइडिया और विजन है उसके पास बैकिंग में कोलैटरल भी हो। तो ये एक ऐसा माध्यम है जिससे सरकार उन लोगों को जिनके पास आइडिया और विजन है उनको एक मौका दे रही है कि वो अपने आइडिया को एग्जीक्यूट करें और एक अच्छा बिजनेस डेवलप करके दिखाएं।
एब्सोल्युटली, वो अपॉर्चुनिटी तो जरूरी है। तो moving to the next question, although you've spoken about this, Ritulji, Mr. Vijay is asking how the hospitality sector is being benefited.
Vijay, I think हॉस्पिटैलिटी सेगमेंट था जो सबसे ज्यादा तकलीफ में आया था कोविड-19 के टाइम पे। हुआ क्या था कि सडनली योर रेवेन्यूज वर ड्राइड अप। The advances that you have taken from your customers for future booking, they were required to be refunded. Hospitality is a capital intensive industry जहां पे आपके पास बहुत बड़ा एक मेंटेनेंस का कॉस्ट आता है, जहां पे आपके फिक्स्ड चार्जेस होते हैं इलेक्ट्रिसिटी और रेंट के, जहां पे आपको स्टाफ को सैलरी पे करनी पड़ती है। तो जो सबसे बड़ा इंपैक्ट आया था वो हॉस्पिटैलिटी इंडस्ट्री के ऊपर ही आया था। अब इन सब चीजों को करने के लिए आपके पास आवश्यकता किस चीज की होती है? वो होती है पैसे की। सो रूटीन में जो वर्किंग कैपिटल थी वो तो आपकी ईटअप अगले 2 महीने 3 महीने में हो चुकी थी, लेकिन उसके बाद सरकार ने क्या किया? मोस्ट ऑफ द इंडस्ट्रीज वर हैविंग लोन्स। तो अगर आपके पास 1 करोड़ का लोन है, व्हाट गवर्नमेंट सेड, वी आर गिविंग यू एन एडिशनल 20 लाख रुपीस ऑफ लोन। सो दिस इज अ टेम्परेरी फेज, you meet out your expenses, try to be on board till this pandemic is over, and then you start up again. So now that we have already come on an endemic, so I think if you are from the hospitality industry, you must be seeing the uptick in the numbers. So till now, we have not yet opened up for the international customer, but still, if you go and call up a good hotel and look for a room on a busy day, you won't find a room today. So there is an uptick in the numbers, though the cost and the value that was being generated from each room या room night से जो हमें मिल रहा था वो भी उतना नहीं बढ़ा है, but it's just a matter of time. लेकिन आज आवश्यकता क्या है? वापस हम वही खड़े हैं, हमें मेंटेनेंस करना है, हमें तैयार करना है, हमारी होटल को रिवैम्प करना है, हमें अपने एम्प्लॉइज को वापस बुलाना है। तो what government is saying that we have already given you a 20% up loan, take another 20%. We are going to spend another 50,000 crore rupees on that, not spend, it will be a loan. But that will give you a bandwidth, and once the sector is on, it's one of the most lucrative sectors. This is one sector which generates the maximum revenue, but it's a very important segment for our country. So once the sectors are on, you will be able to repay those loans. So this is a good thought by the government. And I think many of you must have been benefited by this scheme in the past.
Right. So Mr. Shiva is asking, is there any impact on cashew nuts importing?
Cashew nuts importing. See, I'll have to check that. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't think there is any change in the tax rate so far as custom duty is concerned. But again, I'll have to go back and check on that because I have not checked that as yet. But
Sure.
to my knowledge, I don't think there is a change in the customs rate.
Sure. Then Mr. Akshat Maheshwari is asking, what are the benefits for the educational sector by government in the Union Budget 2022?
So, government, there are two parts to it. One is how you operate, the structural part. So, most of the education institutions are run as a trust or society, which are registered at Section 12AA and taking benefit of ATG. So, for them, there have been certain changes which have been proposed by the government, and there will be more compliance requirement and a more stringent control on the way they are using their funds. So part one is how you are using your funds, that has to be controlled by the government, and the structure of the education sector, that is important. Then we come to the delivery segment. So delivery segment, definitely due to pandemic, we have gone online and a lot of work is being done online. So government, what government is saying, that they are going to create a digital database, and they will be starting around 200 channels, television channels for education purpose for each class and in different languages. And this will be the objective of this TV channel, is to bring the education at par. So in villages, we see that in modern schools or a public school, you will find very good teachers. But when you go to a village school, you may not find such good teachers there because there may be certain constraints. So by these channels, the government would provide a same standard of education at the grassroots level. So this is one thing which has changed. And with this change, I think all the education institutions, they will have to revamp themselves. They are also in the starting node. जो हम लोगों ने tourism industry की बात की थी, hospitality की बात की थी, वो same to same impact education industry पे आता है, क्योंकि स्कूल बंद हो गए, पेरेंट्स ने फीस देना बंद कर दिया. They have passed through a very bad phase, and probably a lot of court cases and everything has happened. But I think now that we are restarting, every education institution, they will have to understand the new dynamics. The world has changed. The world has become more global. The parents and the students, they have seen what is happening across the globe. So you have to be tech savvy. You have to reboot yourself in the modern world, and you have to be prepared to fight with global phenomenon, which is online.
Right. So reboot yourself is
Reboot
the key
yourself.
takeaway now. Okay. So you will notice that we're getting questions from various industries, right? Because on Global Linker we have SMEs from 150 plus industries, and everybody wants to hear about their sector. So Mr. Chinna Swami is asking, there's nothing currently mentioned about the textile sector. What is your view on that? Why is there no change?
Regarding textile sector, they have given certain custom duty exemption for export of textiles. So in the import of, say, zips, buttons, they have given certain exemptions on the custom duty and CVD part, but not a major change has been proposed. One thing which is a matter of deep concern for the textile sector is the rising prices of the cotton. So the cotton and the cotton yarn has seen an exponential growth in the price. When I'm saying exponential, it's a geometric progression. It's not an arithmetic progression. So there has been an exponential growth in the price of cotton and fabric, gray fabric, जो आपका raw material होता है. So situation is where if you have planned yourself well and you have the capacity to renegotiate the price of the output. That is a very important case now, and probably we don't see any easing for next 3 to 4 months. So it may take around 6 months time before we find some price easing in the textile sector.
Right, right. So moving to the next question by Mr. Maurya. The new sector that's arising today in India is microfinance, but funds seem to be the biggest problem for these entrepreneurs. Is there anything in the budget to boost this sector?
The government has stated that they are going to promote the fintech industry. Fintech industry is something which is experimental industry. We all are experimenting till now. So I've got a lot of customers who are doing microfinance through applications, crowdfunding, and a lot of things which are being experimented, which probably, if we see by thumb rule of compliance, which are probably not fully compliant as of date, but they are still experimenting, because India is passing through a phenomenal fintech evolution. So I think you need to explore new things. Still, I'll put a word of caution that be compliant before you try anything which is experimental, because there are few things for which the government is a clear no. So where the government has already said that you can't do it, please don't enter those industries. But there are certain areas where you can experiment. Regarding funding, so there is always a cartelization or of funds. So if you have got a pool of funds, you can always go back to the bank and get it discounted. So discounting of loans is a very common phenomenon which has been practiced from last several years or rather decades. So that is probably one of the source of funding for you. And microfinance is a very lucrative business if you can just recover your money. So सबसे बढ़िया बात क्या होती है, अगर आप अपना पैसा रिकवर कर सकते हो तो माइक्रो फाइनेंस से बढ़िया lucrative business कोई है नहीं. So, but recovery is also a question, because there's a certain percentage which you know that's going to be bad. So, I think you can go for loan cartelization or loan discounting. That is one source that you can hold. And then, if you have got a good business model, you can get funds from a lot of fund houses who are looking forward to invest in fintech. So, if you have got the base of technology and you are capable of building a business model, there are a lot of people who are ready to put their funds behind you.
Right, absolutely. So, Mr. Krishna Kumar is asking, are there any benefits for manufacturing, especially electronics?
I think the only thing we heard in this budget was all about manufacturing, make in India, and electronics. I have already discussed that they have already been given a lot of headway. So what they have done is that the import of components that manufacture electronics that have been made expensive. So once you have higher cost of imports, then your industry becomes very competitive. So by that way, it's a long-term vision. Again, I'm saying that it's not something which could do in 1 year, 2 years, because if I want to establish a manufacturing unit, it will take another 1.5 years by the time you come to the next budget. So it's a long-term vision. This is a visionary budget. It is a 10 to 15 years thought process of budget, a budget which is with a thought process of 10 to 15 years. It is not a 1 year vision. But if you can repose your trust, I think there is a lot of scope for manufacturing in electronics.
Right. So moving to the next question, Mr. Ankit Mittal, he's asking you if, as it was mentioned in the budget, that cost of machines will be lower if it's imported from third country. Can you elaborate a little about this?
No, I think there is a difference. The government has done reverse engineering. In my initial phase also I've said that they have gone for reverse engineering. There are certain aspects which comes as a raw material. Their prices have been reduced. But anything which could be manufactured in India, they have increased the price of that. So we need to see on a case-to-case basis whether in your product we have the government has increased the custom duty or it has reduced the custom duty. But the government has definitely gone for reverse engineering, and I think a lot of thought process has gone behind it, because what they want is that whatever that could be produced in India, that should be produced and consumed in India. You should not get that as an import. So I think we need to see on a case-to-case basis what is the item that we are importing and what is the revised custom duty on that case.
Right, absolutely. So before we take on a few more questions, I can see a couple of hands being raised. I think Mr. Murli has sent a very detailed question. I would request you to unmute yourself and come live and ask your question. Mr. Murli? And while he's doing that, some of you are asking for the pointers and bullets. I have shared on the chat box the ready reckoner, which is shared by Mr. Ritul Patwa ji. So please go through that in detail and you will have a great insight on that. Yes, I can see Mr. Murli now. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, Murli.
Hello.
Hi, Muli. Yeah.
Thanks for the previous query. I mean, you have a query. I mean, you have answered to my satisfactory level. And the for SEZ, we have been hearing from the ministries like for last 5 years, like both Commerce Ministry and Finance Ministry are not agreeing to some extent. And out of 400 odd to 260, only 260 are operating now. So when they're taking such a decision to replace the SEZ Act itself and the way the SEZ customs functions, they are going to simplify. Do you see, I mean, any particular advantages that SEZ units will improve and the existing SEZ will be benefited from that?
So to start with, Murli, if you are an investor, invest in SEZs. It's the future. You can invest in companies that are running the SEZs. So coming to your specific questions. So SEZ is one industry which was envisaged long back. But due to some structural reasons, they were not able to realize their full potential. But two things are good. One, they have got a huge land bank. So most of the SEZ that we are talking about, which have been successful or not successful, they are sitting on huge land bank. So what the government is planning is they are going to maximize the utilization of the land bank on which the SEZs are sitting. They have also tried to identify the reasons why SEZs were not successful. So going by both things hand in hand. So first thing, government is allowing the one thing which is already under the proposal under discussion, that they want to allow the SEZ to be demarketed for local manufacturing also, because Make in India is another big initiative of government. So probably we will see some development on that end. And then they are trying to make the procedures more simplified and more easy for the people to be registered and be part of a SEZ. I think a lot of things are yet in the pipeline. Government has declared certain things have not yet been declared, but which are already in the discussion and also in the public domain. So I think SEZ, maybe we find a very good change in the SEZ policy, which may impact and which may benefit the exporters and the SEZ developers themselves. And it may be a good thing for India and especially Make in India.
Thanks, Ritul. Thanks, Malavika.
Thank you, Modi.
Thank you. So I can see now a lot of people are thanking you for the focused elaborations of the union budget that you did share. Mr. Santoshi has given his word of thanks. Mr. Prashant Maurya as well says that he benefited a lot from the session. So if there are any last questions, we can take them on. Yes, I can see again people raising their hand. Please go ahead and unmute yourself. Yes, Mr. Santosh Naik.
Hi, Santosh. I think you need to unmute yourself. Santosh.
Okay, so in the meanwhile, I'll just take on the next question first. Are there any positives for e-commerce companies? Mr. Richard D'Souza is asking. He just actually also happened to start his online store. So what is your take on that?
Richard, I've been working with a lot of e-commerce companies for a very long time, and probably it's been a very long association with them. So what is happening is there was a space which was totally occupied by brick and mortar shops. And the biggest problem with these big brick and mortar shops was that they had a huge inventory. They were required to create an infrastructure. They were required to be at the right position, which was very expensive. The land and the property was very expensive. Rentals were very expensive. Then came this e-commerce revolution, which totally changed the landscape. So you won't believe when it all started. I had a young boy in 2016, one young boy of 24 years old. He came to my office, थोड़ी सी jeans फटी हुई थी and shirt बाहर निकला हुआ था. So suddenly he came in. So I was busy with something. I said कि मेरे पास time नहीं है, मैं बात करने के 21,000 charge करता हूँ. It was long back. उसने फटाफट 21,000 निकाल के मेरे हाथ में रख दिया and he said कि sir I want to talk to you. Then I got to know that young boy who was an IITN, in just a span of 6 months, he has done a turnover of 10 crore rupees. And he didn't get a VAT registration at that point of time. So that was the magic which has been created by e-commerce companies. That was the magic of e-commerce. In the last budget, government has made certain provisions which were trying to make the brick and mortar shop at par with the e-commerce companies. But still, e-commerce is the future. You have to work on it with, despite of all the government provisions like compliances, TDS, and information that has to be submitted. Everything is required. A lot of compliances have been added to it because, say, otherwise it was difficult for the government to track what is happening in the e-commerce domain. So they have built certain check and correct mechanism, but e-commerce is definitely the future. So we have to be compliant. That is essential. But yes, there are a lot of opportunity in this sector.
Absolutely, 100% agree, because we also at Global Linker have a Linker store, which is a store builder capability, because we do see that that's the future. So if there's anybody who would like to really discuss and understand how to go online, how to start selling, whether B2C or B2B, please feel free to connect with me. I will share my contact details and we can take it on. Okay, so I can see now there are again a stream of questions that have come up. So just one more follow-up on that. Mr. Richard is asking if an e-commerce company can get an avail loan.
Yes, why not? See, it is just the mode of selling which is different. Otherwise, the business is same. There is no difference in your business versus a brick mortar shop. Rather, you are more competitive. You don't have to put a lot of infrastructure cost. So banks will look ultimately in the profitability and the capacity, scalability of the business, which I think is much more than in the e-commerce business. And definitely you can go and have a loan from the bank. The bankers will be happy to give you a loan.
Great.
You can also try a startup loan. If you just have initiated, you can go for a startup loan also.
Sure. So Amisha Javeri, she's asking you if there's any alternate optional tax regime for an individual and how this can be applied for individuals.
Yes, I think I have already shared my income tax ready reckoner, and the optional tax regime will remove all the savings and other benefits. If you go through my ready reckoner, I have specified what is not given to you, and then it will give you a lower tax slabs. So currently, if you are within the tax slab of 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs, so you are in a tax slab of 20%. In the alternate tax regime, it will just come into 5%. So it will make a certain mismatch, but be very sure whether you want to go for the tax regime, because if you are a business owner, you just have one option. One time you can get into it, but you can't come out of it. If you want to go back to the old regime, it will not be possible. For salaried employees, every year they can check which is more beneficial for them and they can change.
Right. Thank you for that. So Mr. Prakash Matani is asking, his question is on the leather industry. Export of raw and semi-finished leather is allowed on payment of duty. India imports a lot of finished leather due to shortfall in quality grades. There is CGTMSE. This includes existing tanneries, product manufacturers to get capital goods. So, Mr. Prakash, I'd request you to actually unmute yourself and ask the question, because I'm not very clear.
I think we can take this question later on. We can take the other questions first.
Sure. Anybody else would like to ask any question? Again, the ready reckoner is in the chat box if you're watching it on Zoom, and if you're watching it on Global Linker Live, then it's in the comment section. Any last questions that you'd like to ask, please go ahead and type it in the chat box. Mr. Ritulji has really spent a lot of time, given us a lot of valuable tips, and I think we've all made the most of it, but this is your last chance now. I have also put in my contact details in the chat box, like we discussed. If you are not able to locate the ready reckoner, then please give me a buzz and I'll help you with that. If you're looking at starting to sell online since e-commerce is the future, then let's connect. Okay. Anything in last comments, Ritulji, that you'd like to mention to our SME viewers?
I think India is on verge of being a developed economy from a developing economy. Probably by 2025, we'll call ourselves as a developed economy, not developing economy. There is a plethora of opportunities which are coming in. The existing businesses or the conventional businesses, there is a lot of competition and it will be very difficult for you to compete with the big conglomerates which are entering into those businesses. Recently, you must have seen that Jio has entered in the Kirana market business or distributor business. So a lot of conventional businesses are going to be difficult going forward. But at the same time, there are a lot of new generation businesses which are coming up and which are going to create huge opportunity for you. So what I'm saying is you can always move on from existing opportunities, build upon your existing strength and move to new opportunities which the market is showing. So definitely future is very bright. Huge opportunities are going to come for MSMEs. Manufacturing is the buzzword for tomorrow. If you are into manufacturing, definitely you are going to be a big winner. Finally, you have to be in the right spot at the right time. My only suggestion to all my clients ever has been that try to find the right spot where you have to stand.
Right.
With that, I think we are in the right direction. Our country is in the right direction, and we are moving towards a very robust economy. And we are going to compete with the best in the world very soon.
Thank you so much, Ritulji, for this wonderful session where you answered, of course, most of our questions, and anything that's unanswered, we can take it offline. You do have an active profile on Global Linkers, so anybody who would like to connect back, please feel free to comment on the article, and Ritulji will be happy to reply back. Thank you so much. Thanks to the attendees as well. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Malvika. Thank you very much.